This video is an example of how to use the following apps: Google Drive, Explain Everything, YouTube, and Schoology in the classroom. This project was done by a 9th grade World Geography class at Coppell High School over world leaders. Part 1 of this tutorial will show you how to create your Google Drive folder. Once groups have been established and each group has the world leader that they'll be studying, the first thing they need to do is appoint a group leader. The group leader will then open up the Google Drive and they will create a new folder by selecting the plus sign and new folder. The next step is to name their folder. For this project, they were told to name their folder their class period followed by the world leader that they were studying. For example, class period 2, Joseph Stalin. Once their folder has been created, then you do select the arrow that will be on the side of their folder, which will open up the option to share that folder. In order to share that folder, they will hit the plus next to where it says who has access. This will open up this pop-up that will allow them to add people. In order to add people, they need to type in the email address of the people they're adding and make sure that it says that they can edit by checking the can edit option and then clicking add. Once all group members, along with the teacher whose email address is given to the students, have been shared the Google Drive folder, each student that it was shared with then needs to go to that Google Drive folder in their shared with me folder and hit the arrow next to it, which will be right here, then click details up at the top right and click add to my drive. This will move the folder that has been created and shared with them from shared with me to their actual drive. Part 2 of this project is for the students to create their own Explain Everything as an individual. This will be their section of the project that they were assigned within their world leader. Tutorials for this are provided on the s'more that was created and that this video is attached to, so no further explanation for part 2 will be given at this point. The next step, part 3, is to export each student's individual Explain Everything project into the shared Google Drive folder. In order to export their individual Explain Everything projects into Google Drive, the first thing each student must do is open up Explain Everything and make sure that their Google Drive is linked with their Explain Everything. To do this, they should select the gear in the upper right of Explain Everything and then slide the Google Drive until it's blue. When it's blue, they'll be prompted to sign in to their Google Drive using their username and password, and this will link their Explain Everything app to their Google Drive app. After their Google Drive app is linked to Explain Everything, they can now export their individual project from Explain Everything into Google Drive. To do this, they will select the export button down in the bottom right and then select More. Their screen will then look like this. Now they can begin to export their individual Explain Everything project into Google Drive by selecting Google Drive down in the bottom, Project near the upper right, and finding their folder to select in order to export that project into the folder, and then clicking Export. This process should not take very long, as the Explain Everything project is exported into their Google Drive folder. The next step, part 4, is to import each individual Explain Everything that the students have created back in to Explain Everything from the Google Drive. In order to import all group members' individual Explain Everything projects back into Explain Everything from the Google Drive, they will first need to make sure that they are working off one group member's iPad, preferably the group leader. The group leader will open up the Google Drive and will begin selecting from the shared folder that they created each of the individual Explain Everything projects that were created. When they select each individual project, it will pop up and say that it's unable to open. However, by selecting Open In near the bottom, it will give them the option to open in multiple apps. They will need to select Explain Everything when this option comes up. When Explain Everything is selected in that option, it will take them from the Google Drive app to the Explain Everything app. Now that Explain Everything project is in the group leader's Explain Everything app. The group leader will then need to go back to the Google Drive and repeat this process for every single group member's individual Explain Everything projects. Once all group members' projects have been imported into the group leader's Explain Everything app, they are now done with this step. The next step, part 5, is to merge each of the individual Explain Everything projects into one final Explain Everything project and reorder the slides into the correct order. In order to merge multiple Explain Everything projects into one, they will need to have the Explain Everything app open and then hold down on one of the project files and then drag it into another project file. They will continue this process until all of the project files that they have created individually are now into one final project file. The next step is to reorder the slides into the correct order for their final project. In order to do this, they will need to first select in the bottom left where it says slide 1 of however many slides they have, and then as it pops up, hold down on which slide they want to move and move it to the correct position that puts them all in order. Once all slides are in the correct order, they are done with this step. The final step, part 6, in this project is to export their final Explain Everything projects from Explain Everything onto YouTube. Students will then take the URL from the YouTube video they created and post it wherever the teacher has designated. For this example, we will be using Schoology, and students will be posting the URL for their video into a discussion board on Schoology so that every student in their class can see. Before exporting their Explain Everything project onto YouTube, students must first make sure that YouTube and Explain Everything are linked together in explain everything. To do this, they must click the gear button in the top right corner and slide YouTube to the on position, which will prompt them to sign in to YouTube with the same email address and password as they did for Google Drive. Once this has been completed, students can begin to upload their video onto YouTube. Now that their Explain Everything app is linked with YouTube, students can now open up their final projects and they can begin exporting it to YouTube. To do this, they will select in the bottom right the same button that they selected when they exported their projects into the Google Drive. However, instead of selecting More, they will now select YouTube. Once they have selected YouTube, a screen similar to this will open up, and there they can name their movie, which should be the same as their folder name in Google Drive. And they can also put a movie description and make sure that this movie is public so that anyone can search for and view this video. After the settings have been established, they will then select Publish in the top right. This will begin the process of their Explain Everything project being uploaded into YouTube. After their video has been uploaded, it will give them the option to either email the YouTube URL or to copy the YouTube URL. For this project, students have been told to copy the URL, then open up the Schoology app, go to the discussion that was created for this project, and post their YouTube URL into the discussion board for this project. Those were the final instructions that were given to the students in regards to this project. Now that all videos are on the discussion board, students can go back and look at them individually, or the class can watch them as a group. Since these videos were posted on a discussion board in Schoology, students can now go back and comment on all of the other students' projects that they created. This will be the final thing that they do for this project. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and I hope that it helps you incorporate Explain Everything, Google Drive, YouTube, and Schoology into your classroom.